Confidence.
Confidence comes from doing. Doing comes from understanding.
Yes.
If you don't understand something, you won't do it.
Right.
Okay. We're going to go through this really, really fast. Because I don't want to be divorced. Nah, I'm fine. All right. This is a section that was actually a conversational framework. Remember I said that when we talked about the 7 stages of flirtation, the average time limit to go from stage 1 up to and around stage 7, 15 minutes. I would be a little bit more liberal. I would say go from stage 1 to 4, maybe 4.5 in 15 minutes. You may hover, depending on your level of rapport, commonality, things like that. That's still fast. And if you think about it, that's fast. But those aren't my numbers. Those are actual field research done by scientists from all over the place. Okay? If you do it, if you follow her cues. If you miss the cues, you go backwards. But every time you hit a benchmark, just like the 4 magic bullets, you're doing great, keep on going. Don't extrapolate. Don't rush ahead. Pace her in her time. And you'll get there fast. It's ironic, even in my book on maximizing sexual experience, the one thing I keep telling you guys, besides pay attention, is if you want to arouse a woman faster, slow down. The slower you go, the more aroused she becomes. It's the way they're designed. Okay? I didn't design them, that's just the way it is. So let's run through the 3 questions, and then I'll extrapolate a little bit on them, and then I'll send you home to go out into the world and play with them. Okay? This particular conversational framework was designed by a man for women, but it will work with minor variations for you very, very well. Okay? First question is going to be occasion and location. In other words, why are the both of you there today? What brought you here? What's going on? Second, and then what you also want to do at this level is you want to comment and ask their opinion about something going on in the external environment. Now, based on all the conversation we've had to this point, why would we do that?
Get them out of their head.
Get them out of their head. Get them focused on the external reality so that you can start directing their thoughts where you want them to go. You start directly. This is the illusion of control, ladies and gentlemen. They think they're driving the conversation. You ask the question that moves them in the direction you want them to go. No matter how they answer it, they're doing what you want. Make sense? But it's a very superficial, paceable question. You can't go through these 3 questions. You can't jump from this one, from this to this. It's too invasive. You haven't got enough rapport. You haven't laid the foundation. This is a superficial level that gets them out of their head, directs their thoughts. Where do you want to go? Why are you here today? Are you here with friends? What do you think about that centerpiece over there? What do you think about the band? How do you like your Alfa Romeo? If you're if you're out in the world and somebody pulls up in a car next to you, how do you like your Corvette? Or how do you like to do this? Anything that's open-ended that gets them talking. If they can just answer yes or no, you're done. You might as well just move on or ask a different question really fast. Okay? That's it. By the way, this is also a 15-minute framework. 3 questions, 15 minutes, you know all you need to know about whether you want to proceed with that person or not. Okay? This was designed to help women weed out the bad men.
So David, tweaking this then to like bumping into someone at the gas station or something like that, then it would be, what are you up to today?
How's your day going? And find something that you can pace. get a comment, get an opinion. Now, keep in mind, if they're at a gas station, you have a very short time constraint. Then what you want to do is you want to pace that. Say, hey, I know I don't have a lot of time, I got to go somewhere. That eliminates the time pressure for both of you and gives you an opportunity to eject if you don't like where it's going. False time constraints are very powerful. Okay? Even back in the 80s, we knew the power of false time constraint. Well, no, that's a big thing now. In the past 10 years or 5 years, however long since mystery's been out, the whole false time constraint thing has been a major aspect of the seduction industry. But he didn't come up with it. And I can prove it. But it works extremely well. Interestingly, if the conversation's really, really going well, those false time constraints tend to evaporate really, really fast. Don't they?
They disintegrate.
I love it. I love having women you're like, my God, he gets it. Here's where the meat comes in. What do you do? What do you do for a living? Tell me about your job. What's your job like? What are your challenges? Okay? So what do you do? Remember, with guys and women, this is a lot of this is true with women too. They're very invested in their careers. But trust me, they're much more interested in relationships than they are in careers. You start getting talking, they'll talk for hours. Okay? But what do you do? Now, this doesn't have to be work. If you meet somebody at a track meeting, or a track club, or a meetup, what do you like about this stuff? What's it do for you? You know, how did you, and of course, once you open that door, how did you get into it? What got you started? Remember, the more they talk, the more you go, the more your stock goes up. By the way, how much talking are you doing? Almost none. The more they talk to you, the more attractive you become. To err is human. To speak when you shouldn't is really screw things up. So you ask them how they got into it. You let them talk. As they're talking, you're looking for what I like to call personal trance triggers. Some people would call these trance words. They are words that they will lean on emotionally. Those words have unique and special meaning to them. They go right to the core emotions that make this event special to that person. That's what you're looking for. That's what you're listening for. Because when you speak, you must use them back. And every time you do, the level of intimacy between the two of you magnifies. Okay? We call that the 3D. We'll talk about the 3D technique later. But that's where you're going. But here's the other thing. You've gone from a very superficial level, non-threatening in any situation. Okay? Very superficial. What do? People love to talk about what they do. Even if they hate it, they love to bitch. Which lets you know something about them right off the bat. If they're sitting with someone they've only known for 10 or 15 minutes, and all of a sudden they're bitching about something, always be screening. That's what this is for. The 7 stages, the 3 questions, they're designed to weed out the crappy ones and move you into the heart of the good ones. But you decide where to go based on the responses they're giving you, which means you have to what? You have to pay fucking attention. Okay? Pay attention. And believe me, that's the biggest compliment you can pay somebody. To pay attention, because that's all we want. At the core, all we want is someone to pay attention to us. And there's energetic reasons behind that. If you want to know about that, read the Celestine Prophecy. Present, what are your challenges? What challenges you about what you do? What feeds your spirit about that track? Doing Ironman competitions. What is it about NLP and hypnosis that inspires you, that challenges you? What does it do for you? Those answers to those kind of questions will tell you about how this person moves through the world, how they see the world, what their potentials are. If you get a lot of negative stuff that makes you feel icky, guess what? See ya. Mom's calling. You decide right off the bat, based on the quality of the responses that you're getting, whether you go to the next level. Just like the 4 magic bullets. Tell them to do it, get the feedback. Do I need to eject or go to the next step? If this is assuming that they're passing all these tests. And you make those decisions based on your sense of self-worth and identity if they're meeting your criteria and values. Future. Where do you see yourself? What do you want to do with your life? You ever have thought about going into business, or what are your, what's your future look like? What do you want? And this is in the context of business, but it could just as easily be in the context of a hobby or something that they're passionate about. Which, by the way, is where you should be meeting the people that you want to date. Because if you don't share things in common, it's going to be a real quiet house. It's going to be a real lonely life. You should be dating from your social circle. Because those are the people you like. Unless you decide that the people you're hanging around aren't going in the direction that you want, in which case you have to change yourself and find better friends. Or I shouldn't say better, I should say different. There's an old saying, which is pretty true. Show me who your friends are, I'll show you who you are. We move towards sameness. We move towards what's familiar. That's what we started the seminar with, wasn't it? Nothing's changed. The more like somebody you are, or the more like us, the better we like them. It's just that simple. So tell me what your future's about. If he starts riffing on how he hates his job, how he doesn't see a good future, he starts getting all negative and pessimistic, is that someone you want to share your life with? Is that someone you want to share your near future with? If they're hot, that may trump all the other things you get. But keep in mind that that's a decision you have to make. But at least now you have the tools to make that decision. It's all about, remember, I started the seminar with what? Identity, intelligence, influence. Knowing who you are, what you believe in, what you stand for, what you want, what you don't want. Gathering information about the people you're interacting with so you can decide who gets in, who doesn't. Power and choice. It's up to you. Where did you grow up? This is where the rubber hits the road. Tell me where you grew up. Tell me about what's your fondest memory about where you grew up? Who did you play with? What did you like to do?
Great question in San Diego because no one's actually from here.
Exactly. Now, this is powerful. Because the further back you go, further back in time, their mind regresses. The most powerful childhood memories are the most pervasive. Yes, there's a sneakiness to this. Mm-hmm. Okay? Some of our most powerful memories happened when we were kids. What are you asking for? Pleasant childhood memories. What do they have to do? They have to think back. They have to access it. They have to see it inside their mind. They have to feel the emotions, and then they have to tell you about it. Who are they looking at when all those good feelings come up? You. Who do those good feelings get linked to? You. Who becomes the source of those feelings? You do. 3 magic questions. And it tells you everything you need to know to decide if you want to go forward, backwards, whether you want to start leveraging the information you acquired, or just finish the night and move on to something else. 15 minutes.
You mentioned trance words,
Mm-hmm.
personal trance words. So can you give us an example of a few of those, what they might be like?
Well, let's say
are
one
there
of
more
the-
emotions?
Sure. Let's say, for example, that when I was growing up, when I was young, one of the fondest memories I ever had was when I was working 3 jobs. But because I was a teenager with 3 jobs, I actually had money, so I could buy the things I wanted. And there was this Ford Mustang that I absolutely loved. And when I drove that car, it was like, just driving on the open road, feeling the vibration. I remember the feeling of just being free and exhilarated when I drove that car, feeling powerful, like I could go anywhere, like I could do anything. What are my trance words?
Free, exhilarated, powerful.
What words did I lean on?
Feel.
Okay, feel is good, but power, freedom, control, I can go anywhere, I can do anything. Do you see how the emotions just pour out? That's what you're shifting to speak, what you're parsing for, listening for, feeling for.
And then repeat those words.
When you communicate, use those personal metaphors. It's like, and what you do is the first thing that comes out of it, when it's your turn to speak, you say, I totally feel what you're saying. I totally agree with what you're saying. And when this is the Ford of my life. Boom! Now, those of you who don't have a Ford reference, that doesn't make any sense unless you know my personal trance words. It makes perfect sense to me. And it goes right to the core of who I am.
Do you go for criteria in the second section, or is that kind of an afterthought?
That's later.
Okay.
You won't get criteria until after this. It's too invasive. However, the trance words that they give you are linked to their criteria. Yeah.
What if you get, let's say, starting off with the first question, you ask, so what brings you here today? Let's say you ask them a question and they give you a yes or no response, and then you're sort of...
Then you ask the wrong question.
So open-ended questions and just keep...
You know what? If you ask a question that invites a deeper response than what you're getting, and they're not giving it to you, that's usually an indication of where they're at.
Right.
And you have to make a decision whether they're worth your time. Because remember, this stage is not about you. They don't know enough about you to judge you for anything. And that's the problem, the misunderstanding we have. When you walk up to somebody and they say no to whatever you're offering them, we automatically assume that they're saying no to our entire life, our entire identity. And it just isn't true. All they're saying no to is what we asked them. And a lot of that has to do with who they are and where they are at that particular moment in time. If you approach a woman who's been dancing all night, and she's exhausted, she finally got off the dance floor, and her feet are tired, you walk up and ask her if she wants to dance, and she says no, most guys would take that as a crushing defeat. It could be she's just fucking tired. But we automatically assume the worst. Because it takes so much internal moxie to approach him in the first place, and we have to cycle through all these things, all of these mental and emotional gymnastics to overcome that anxiety in the first place, that we think, we're actually projecting the outcome before we get there. But what if you just have the expectation of she's either going to say yes or she's going to say no? And I just want to find out what kind of person she is. Not whether you're actually going to wind up rocking the Ramada 2 hours later. Because that means you're inside your own head. You're paying attention to your own thoughts, your own needs, your own desires, instead of finding out what's going on with her. And I promise you, as long as you keep doing that, you'll keep getting the same results you've been getting. The samurai in Japan spent decades training them to be in the world every moment, every day. Why? Because that was where the power was. You couldn't change the world from being inside your head. You couldn't be effective in the world. You have to do the same thing. Get out of your head and into the world. Okay? Sometimes it's easier said than done. But if you become very, very curious about other people, you become playful about other people. If you see somebody that looks interesting, you say, wow, I wonder what kind of person she is. It's much easier to approach somebody you're curious about than to somebody you want to sleep with. Right? But until you get to know that person, how do you know if you're going to regret, waking up next to them the next day, even if you do get it? So my suggestion is that you learn to make women, or men, depending on what your gender preference is, less important to you. Concentrate on moving through the world and just having fun. That's it. Have fun. If you do that, every woman you meet will want to hang out with you. Because that's what they experience when they're with you. My only goal, 9 out of 10 women slept with the first night. Saying that? Not going to pass judgment on it. You know why? I didn't try to sleep with him. I just wanted to have fun. I just wanted to have a good time. So did they. I passed the tests. Nature took its course. They had a great time. You can do the same thing. Just stop placing so much value. Don't get ahead of yourself. Avoid that. And a lot of the installation things that we'll do in the mastermind will help with that. But by and large, just understanding the traits you need to cultivate, externalizing that, making lists of things and activities that you can go out and do that enhance, like even assertiveness. Make a list of 10 or 12 things from easiest to hardest where being assertive will get you something that you want. Go out and do them. That's it. You don't have to be hard. You just have to be consistent. Toughness. Lots of different ways to do that. But do them. Take the same mental toughness you exhibit in your jiu-jitsu out there. Make it operative across every context of your life. And that's the problem, is we have these traits in certain contexts. But when we leave the context, we leave the trait there. It becomes dormant. You have all the things you need. You just have these arbitrary walls set up that you can't access. But once you find your identity, once you go to the core of who you are, you choose what to express, when to express it. It stops being a random and default thing that just kind of happens to you. Go through the world having fun, making people feel good. The rest will take care of itself. Pay attention to what's going on outside. With her, with you. You'll be amazed. You just follow the bullet points. And you will get from A to Z. Any questions?